Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We are getting close to what could be one of the biggest action RPG launches of 2026. Crimson Desert has been in the where is it category for years, but now it finally looks like we're in the home stretch. And Pearl Abyss has started turning up the heat with more showcases, more details, and more answers to the big questions. And recently, during a New Game Plus style creator interview, we got some of the clearest explanation yet on what this game actually is. So in this video, I'm going to break down most important takeaways, how big the game is, what the story is really about, what kind of RPG systems we should expect, and why the project shifted away from being an MMO. Let's jump in. The big question, how massive is the world really? One of the biggest mysteries around Crimson Desert has been its scale. Like, is this a huge open world just for the sake of being huge, or is it actually packed with things to do? In the interview, the developers spoke directly about that. They made the comparison point blank. They're also aiming for a world bigger than Skyrim and Red Dead Redemption 2. This is obviously a huge statement, but they also addressed the follow-up concern, because a big map doesn't matter if it's empty. Their message was basically, the size isn't the selling point by itself. The goal is for the world to feel alive and interactive, not like a giant checklist where you're just sprinting between icons. And honestly, from what we have seen so far, dragons, chaotic fights, weird emergent moments, it definitely doesn't look like a dead world. The question is, whether it can keep that energy across the entire map. What's the story actually about? Another thing people keep asking is, okay, but what are we doing? Where is the narrative here? From the start, Crimson Desert has been farmed around Lif and the Greymans, crossing a brutal continent that's basically falling apart. There's political instability, factions clashing, and it all spirals after the king dies. In this interview, they added more context. The way they described is, early on, Lif and the Greymans are protecting a faction, and things go bad fast. A rival force hits hard, the group gets broken apart, and members end up scattered. So a major drive of the game becomes tracking your people down, rebuilding, regrouping, and crawling your way back. Not just surviving the world, but reclaiming your strength and influence. Is this a choice-driven RPG? What about romance? Since it's being called an RPG, one of the questions that came up was whether this is a kind of game where you're building relationships and romancing characters. And the answer sounded pretty clear. No, that's not the direction here. It doesn't sound like a Mass Effect style system with romance options and heavy branching dialogue. Instead, they emphasize that players will generally move through the same core narrative, but it'll feel different based on how you play, your build, your approach to fights, and the things you get into across the world. So, it's less choose your story path and more your gameplay creates your version of the experience. The demos don't represent the real at-home experience. This part was really interesting because it explains something a lot of people have noticed. If you've watched the demos and showcases, you might assume that's exactly how progression feels, like your character can do a bit of everything at once. But they pointed out that those demos builds are basically boosted characters. They're tuned to be flexible all-rounders, so a single demo can show off melee, ranged, mobility tools, flashy combat options, and different mechanics without locking into one playstyle. In the real release version, the idea is that you can lean hard into a speciality. So if you want to build a character who's all about archery and movement, and you're willing to sacrifice melee strength to get there, it sounds like you can. And that's the kind of thing that makes replayability feel real, because it changes how you approach encounters and exploration. What do you do when you're not fighting? They also asked about downtime, what you're doing in the world when you're not in combat. And it sounds like the game is getting a proper set of life skills which tracks with Pearl Abyss history. We already know things like fishing, cooking, and mining exist, but they admitted they haven't really shown these systems properly yet. They also hinted that there's more to crafting and gathering than just manually smacking rocks and chopping trees forever. Right now, footage we have seen is mostly hands-on gathering, but the implication is that in the full game, you'll unlock better methods of resource collection over time, potentially including more automated or upgraded approaches. If that system is done well, it adds a completely different progression loop, not just get stronger by fighting, but build up your tools, your economy, your crafting, and your long-term setup. And yes, things are going to get weird. Even outside the interview, there was another moment that really sold the chaos factor. There's a clip floating around of Cliff riding a dinosaur. We already expected dragons, we've seen monsters, we've even seen some more out there stuff teased. But a dinosaur mount, that caught people off guard. And that's kind of a vibe this game keeps giving off. It wants to surprise you with these, wait, that's in the game? Moments. Performance concerns. Will it actually run well? Let's be real. People are nervous about performance. Big open worlds with lots of NPCs and physics-heavy combat can absolutely melt hardware, and we have seen enough major releases struggle with optimization to make that a fair concern. Pearl Abyss addressed this by talking about their tech and engine. Crimson Desert isn't running on Unreal Engine 5. It's built on their own tech, Black Space Engine, and they are positioning it as something tailored specifically for this kind of game. They also mentioned that they're aware of the complaints players have had with some large-scale Unreal Engine titles, and they are trying to avoid this by building everything around their own pipeline. And from hands-on impressions, the game has been shown running in a way that looks very smooth, including footage targeting 4K and high frame rates. Digital Foundry also had a CES hands-on and came away impressed with the tech and overall performance direction. Now, of course, final release performance can still vary depending on platform and final optimization, but at least they're openly tackling the concern instead of ignoring it. Why did this stop being an MMO? This is the part I've personally been most curious about for years, because Crimson Desert originally sounded like it was going to be tied more directly to Black Desert Online, almost like a prequel MMO project. In the interview, the explanation was basically, during development, the project hit a turning point. They could keep forcing it into an MMO structure. They could follow the direction the combat systems and the designs were naturally pushing them towards. And they chose the second option, make it a story-driven action game and then bring in more talent with experience in narrative-focused development to build the single-player side out properly. It's a massive shift, and it does raise the question, if you're a hardcore Black Desert player, did you want the MMO version, or are you happier we are getting a more focused, story-based action RPG? The Sky Islands and Abyss content. Another feature that keeps coming up is the floating Sky Island content, and it's giving a little bit of that puzzle island energy you'd see in a Zelda-style setup. In the interview, they made it sound like these islands aren't just random collectibles in the sky, they connect the world building and the narrative, described as tied to another dimension, with story explanation for why they exist and why you can't always see them from the surface. Gameplay-wise, the big point is variety. These spaces can shift you away from the constant fighting and into exploration and puzzle solving, with special rewards like treasure and potentially unique gear. And if those rewards include weapons with unique effects or skills, like we have seen hinted before, then Sky Islands could end up being some of the most exciting content in the game. So, where does that leave us? Overall, the new info reinforces the big picture. Crimson Desert is leaning hard into emergent gameplay, exploration, and that anything can happen open world energy. And there's also a strong suggestion that the game might have plenty to do even after the main story ends. Not just a quick credit roll and you're done, but a world that still has systems and activities worth engaging with. Now the real test is whether all of this comes together at launch, because the ambition is massive. If it lands, it could be special. So let me know what you're most excited about: the combat, the world, the weird systems like crime and dragons, or the life skills and crafting. And if you want more Crimson Desert updates as we get closer to release, make sure you're subscribed, because I'll be covering the big reveals as they drop. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.